A legal team for former Vice President Mike Pence found a, quote, small number of classified documents inside his Indiana home last week, according to aides. In a letter sent to the National Archives, Pence's attorney said the Trump-era files were, quote, inadvertently boxed and transported to the former Veep's home, and that Pence was unaware of the existence of sensitive or classified documents at his personal residence. Tucker Carlson questioned the timing of the discovery on Fox News last night. Let's watch.
Mike Pence, of all people, has just swooped in to save Joe Biden. Yes, Mike Pence, a man so flamboyantly pure he won't have dinner with ladies not his wife. And yet Mike Pence also had secret documents in his house, just like Joe Biden. Bet you didn't see that coming. It wasn't so long ago that Pence was on television saying he was sure he had no classified documents in his possession. He said that a few times. Then just days ago, Mike Pence sent his personal attorney to search his family's home in Carmel, Indiana for classified documents. Now, if Mike Pence didn't think he had classified documents, why would he send his lawyer to go look for classified documents? We can't say for certain, but it's entirely possible, in fact, it's likely, that Mike Pence was asked to do this by federal prosecutors who are trying to build a case against his old boss, Donald Trump. Now, the point would be to show that not every federal official walks off with state secrets. Donald Trump was uniquely evil in that regard, as in so many others. See, Mike Pence didn't do it. So if that was the plan, and we suspect that it was, it backfired spectacularly because Mike Pence's lawyer promptly discovered classified documents.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, I'm sorry, but Joe Biden already had classified documents. So if the whole point is to try to frame Trump as the only one who would do something that's dumb or that's irresponsible, let's say, we already know that Joe Biden also has classified documents. So I don't know that it would help the case that much to say, well, Mike Pence followed the rules. We already know that Joe Biden didn't follow the rules. So
they all, the big point, the one that should not be missed, is that they all have classified documents because it turns out this is a really stupid crime and a very easy crime. It's not really a crime. It shouldn't be. It's stupid. They all have boxes of documents. I don't know. I haven't seen them, but my strong suspicion is none of these documents are nuclear secrets.
Yeah.
They were reflexively marked classified because the government redacts everything. If you ever filed FOIAs, they redact everything. They don't want you to know what they're doing. They're secrecy inclined, they're transparency averse. Everything should be kept from the American public. So everything gets marked classified, and it's impossible to keep track of for these people. I don't think Pence or Biden or even Trump were honestly trying to do anything wrong with this or put national security in any jeopardy. Trump made it a little bit more exciting from a reality TV star point of view because he refused to give them back in a very Trumpy fashion that made this into a thing. But everyone who has gotten tricked into thinking this is a thing has to be distancing themselves a little bit at this point, right? They all have them, and no one. It's not a look. I don't like the government. I don't like political figures of both tribes. I want to get them on technicalities and get them in trouble for violating our civil liberties, which they do routinely. These are nothing burgers. These are all nothing burgers. That's my standpoint. They're all nothing burgers. Prove me wrong. If it's an important thing, show me the document that was really alarming.
Sure.
That was in somebody's garage or attic. My prediction, they will never be able to do that, ever.
I mean, look, I think this is really an indictment of the gerontocracy because why do all these people have so many hard copy documents? Do they not have secure iPads so they can look at some of these e-readers they can look at some of these documents on? I mean, I feel like at this point there's going to be a bunch of Halloween costumes this year where it's like the clown pulling the scarves out, but it's classified documents.
Like the CVS receipt, that's a good costume. I retweeted someone who said that should be could be AOC's next dress for the Met Gala, just documents.
I mean, look, but here's something I have noticed. Liberals, I think, have now pivoted to, this is all a nothing burger. This is so silly. But they also are making the point that you just made that the one difference that does stand out here is that Donald Trump was apparently fighting this tooth and nail to the end, and that's why his documents got an FBI raid, where everyone else, including Mike Pence, Republican and Democrats alike, everyone who isn't Donald Trump, has been complying. And I see that some conservative commentators continue to bristle whenever that distinction is brought up, pretending this is a distinction without a difference. Do you think it's meaningful to keep pressing that point?
I mean, how Trump handled this was very silly. He's done silly is the word I'm using because I don't think there's anything at stake.
Why do you think he
I don't
did
think
it?
it's a national security issue at all.
I mean, but let's move that just a little bit.
Okay.
If there's nothing at stake, why on earth would Donald Trump put his foot down and be so obstinate?
He's a combative person. He liked the mementos. I don't know. He wanted to hang them up in Mar-a-Lago. I don't know.
You can't have some
care.
non-classified mementos, steal some china from the
probably
Jacqueline
they're
Kennedy
all
room?
classified because the government classifies everything.
You can't steal a lamp, a rug, a piece of art.
I don't know if he took those things too. I don't know. On Monday, hosts of ABC's The View reacted to exactly what we're describing, the reporting that more classified documents were found at Biden's Delaware home. And here's how Whoopi Goldberg defended him.
Presidents and vice presidents can declassify these, not with their brains. There is something that you go through before it's declassified. But this order it was expanded right after that George Bush put it into place because George Bush made it so presidents could declassify. Obama stretched it to make it vice presidents. So I wish they would say all that while they're explaining what's going on, because if you say, a classified document, everybody goes, oh my God, how dare he keep that? And if these guys can declassify, presidents and vice presidents can declassify, are we chasing our tail with some of this?
However, Goldberg didn't get very far before co-host Alyssa Farah jumped in and said this.
That's a very good point, but I think it has to be true for Trump and for Biden. So if for President Biden to be able to declassify something, there has to be evidence he did in fact declassify it, which is the thing that Trump's trying to argue. I declassified it.
Right,
well, there's no evidence.
He did it with his. He didn't go through the process. He'd say he did with his mind.
But is Biden saying he even did
I
that?
don't think Biden's saying that yet. And I think what I'm frustrated by is how kind of brazen and dismissive President Biden has been of this, because he said it went from, anyone could be irresponsible, but I have no regrets. There's no there to, but it was locked up next to my Corvette. I mean, this, as you said, is a very serious matter.
Alyssa's 100% right.
Yeah, but is it a serious matter?
Well,
Except for that part.
Well,
She's totally right about the box. Yes.
Liberals made this into a serious matter.
Yes.
Biden made this into a serious matter when he said it's the most serious matter in all of the world that Donald Trump did this. Cut to a month later,
right.
and he's done the exact same thing.
Agreed. But the thing we're talking about is probably like a grocery list. And I can't get past that fact.
I know, but that's part of why this is so frustrating. It's a weird own goal for Democrats. It's the same. It reminds me of what's going on with this, new church committee to investigate the weaponization of the FBI or whatever. There are opportunities. There are opportunities to gain credibility with an audience that doesn't already like you or has reason to hate you. There are opportunities to say, you know what, there's a little bit of truth, or maybe there's a lot of truth in what your underlying concerns are. Yeah, it is true that the IRS targets poor people. Yeah, it is true that these intelligence agencies have been weaponized and have done bad things in the past. Let me show some grace and see if I can work toward you on those kinds of issues where we have agreement. Let me show some grace when we know that Donald Trump has done something that isn't actually that aberrant, taking the documents, and at least focus the criticism on he should have given them back instead of these broad statements about how deeply irresponsible it was for the classified documents to be in his possession to begin with. But instead of taking those opportunities to seem like they are neutral, legitimate, just trying to get to the bottom of truth and acting in the best interest of the American citizens, Democrats repeatedly overplay their hand. And I'm sorry to bring them up again, but there's a reason why people look at a figure like Bernie Sanders and have such high praise for him, and he polls so well despite being on the fringe of American politics in a lot of ways. And it's because he's perceived to be a good faith actor. He doesn't take opportunities like this to grandstand and grind the other side just for partisan reasons. And Alyssa's completely right. They took a story that wasn't a big deal and transformed it into another example of how liberals are partisan hacks. And it justifies something like the committee to investigate the weaponization of the deep state.
I remember in one debate, one of the Democratic primary debates, Bernie Sanders saying, being asked about the Hillary Clinton emails thing and just kind of rolling his eyes and saying, I, for one, have heard enough about about Secretary Clinton's emails.
Yeah.
And it was a good line.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I remember feeling similar.
Some people wish he had actually pushed her kind of hard on that and won the primary. But it's that kind of grace that makes him esteemed. I don't know.
Well, meanwhile, over at MSNBC, Morning Joe host Joe Scarborough let loose on President Biden over the scandal. Let's watch.
And as far as a classified document, my God, if somebody tried to hand me a classified document going out of I'd put my hands up in there and let it drop on the floor. You are taught.
We don't know what is.
You are taught. No. This is a cultural thing. It just is. You are taught to treat classified documents in a certain way. And so that's why Durbin is responding the way Durbin's responding, and why a lot of people are shocked by it. And you're just going like this?
No.
It's just as bad.
I agree.
It's just as bad if a Democrat's doing it as a Republican's doing it. Now, listen, you look to intent, and the intent for Donald Trump, obviously far worse. With Joe Biden, based on what we know, it was just sloppy. Yeah. But man, it was sloppy with America's classified information. Why are there so many classified documents?
Joe, it's incredibly...
At the Penn Center? Why are there classified documents in his garage? Why are there classified documents in his home?
It's incredibly sloppy. It's unforgivable in a certain sense. I do not believe he's been diminished by this. He's been deeply embarrassed by this. We don't know who packed those boxes, but you know what it is. Even leaving Congress.
Mike, can I ask you this? Why don't we know that? He needs to come out.
That was, look, I have to say, extremely ignorant. I'm like, well, if I was handed a classified document, I wouldn't touch it. Like, I'd play floor is lava with it. Like, what? The point, there's too many classified documents, and things get misplaced. And he's saying, well, this is an unforgivable sin. You know what this is? This is faux centrism. This is trying to sound fair and moderate and balanced because they're always railing against Republicans. Well, here's an opportunity to prove, but we're even-handed because we're going to rail against Biden for this. But there are plenty of things you could rail against Biden for his failures on numerous fronts. But they don't touch those.
He wrote the crime bill. I have never heard any of these individuals as angry about Biden writing the crime bill or eulogizing a segregationist or any of the myriad terrible things he's done in his long career as they are about him touching a classified document. Now, I will say, I agree with you mostly, but for context, they were talking about Senate Majority Whip Dick Durbin, who said that Joe Biden had lost the, quote, high ground in this political back and forth. And I think that Dick Durbin is right about that. Biden has lost the high ground. He's lost his ability to grandstand. In the context of railing against
Trump and saying no one would do this.
Exactly. But I agree with you. High ground over what? This is ridiculous. Americans can barely afford groceries. We're in the doomsday clock is 90 seconds to midnight. Come on, people. Let's preserve some of this anger for things that actually affect the material lives of the American people.
Throw eggs at these commentators, except we can't spare them anymore because of Joe Biden's policies.
When I was a kid, I saw it to me. When I was a kid, we had it so good that we used eggs and toilet paper to throw at our enemies.
That's great. All right, we'll have more Rising after this. Hopefully we don't find any boxes of classified papers in our garages. See you later.